Amendment proposed, Schedule 4, page 167, line 31, leave out from rate to and in line 33 and insert the words printed on the Marshall list.
My Lords. Thank you. My Lords, I rise in general to support the principle of what my noble friend Lord Warwick has said, but I'm not entirely sure that we need to go into this new world that he is creating when we have a perfectly satisfactory world that exists already. At the moment, now I hasten to add, I am not, of course, a chartered surveyor, and everything I say is subject to correction by those members of this House who understand these matters better than I. But my understanding of it is, first of all, the deferment rate exists already. This is not a new thing being invented. It is absolutely essential in any enfranchisement that you have a rate of interest at which you discount to a present value what has to be paid, because you're dealing with transactions that are theoretically happening in the future. So you need, but you're paying for them today. And for that you need a rate of interest. At the moment, that rate of interest is set in the environment of a tribunal. And the tribunal can change the rate of interest on the basis of evidence adduced to it and the basis of argument as to why that evidence is applicable to a particular case. And it reflects market value, I'm sure it reflects market value to a degree in the circumstances of those properties and the particular location, whether it's central London or some other part of the country. And the rates will be different. And that system has never been, nobody has ever thought that that system is wrong. The second thing is, and here is where I may be parting company from my noble friend, a point he may not, if I've got it correct, and he may not have grasped, is that the rate currently used is a real rate, that is, it is a rate that assumes zero inflation. Because the valuations used for future value, what is the value of my flat in 80 years' time, assumes there is no inflation over that period. So the appropriate discount rate is a real rate of interest, and that, I think, may explain the discrepancy between the 4-point-something% on the one hand and the 10-point-something% that my noble friend has come up with. But in either case, whether I'm right about that or he isn't, we need to understand the deferment rate, whether the deferment rate is a real rate of interest or one that incorporates inflation. And that is not clear, in my view, in what has been said. Let us turn then briefly to what is proposed by the government. The government is proposing that this decision, currently sensitively taken on the basis of evidence and argument by an independent tribunal, should be transferred to become the arbitrary choice of the Secretary of State. And it has huge implications. If you really want to make it very, very cheap for a leaseholder to extend their lease or to acquire the enfranchisement of their property, then all you have to do arbitrarily is set a deferment rate which is very high, because a very high rate of a very high deferment rate will produce a very low present value that you have to pay. But if you want to protect the freeholder class, then of course you would set a very low deferment rate, and that would mean that the leaseholder had to pay a very large amount. There is no indication. It's entirely a political choice. If you are going to set the deferment rate, the Secretary of State is going to set the deferment rate without any constraints. It's an entirely political choice. It hands money to one class or the other as seems politically suitable to you. We are asked to agree this measure with no indication, as my noble friend has said, as to what deferment rate the Secretary of State is going to choose. Now, all of this, whatever your views on the rights and wrongs and whether leaseholders are good people or bad people and what you should do about charities and everything else, all of this must be profoundly unsatisfactory. We are moving from an evidence-based system to one that is essentially arbitrary. We are doing so in giving a power which is inherently political, not financial but political, and we are doing it with no sight whatsoever as to what the decision of the Secretary of State might be. Why on earth would we agree to this? And whether my noble friend's solution is the correct one, or whether we might not be better just sticking with the current system, of course, are very important points. But why are we making changes in the first place and giving these powers away with no understanding?